Hello everyone. So far in this course, we've looked at how tables are created and how we can read data out of those tables. However, we've sort of skipped one important step in the middle, how we actually populate these tables with data. So in this video, we're going to explore 3 new SQL statements that will help us with this. Insert statements that allow us to read data into our tables, update statements, which allow us to change one or more columns, and delete statements, which allow us to target rows for removal. We'll cover the basic syntax of each and note some similarities and some differences with our create and select statements that we've seen previously. So with that, let us begin. So I've already written a little bit of code for us here. I've got an import to PG. I'm creating a connection pool and actually connecting with that pool exactly the way we've done in the last couple videos. The last thing I've done is I've actually created a new table for us just so we have something unique to work with. I'm sure the same example is getting tired. So I've created a vehicle table. Vehicles all have an ID, which is a serial primary key. So it'll be a number that counts up from 1. They have to have a make and a model, and then year, color, and mileage are a couple extra optional properties that we can specify. So this is a pretty average table. It's going to be similar to most of the ones that you'll probably work with. If I wanted to add data to this table, I would do so with an insert statement. Insert statements allow us to write new data into existing tables. So they won't let us insert something that's not already there. The structure of the table needs to be set. But once we have a table, which normally was written weeks, months, years, decades ago, the general format for adding data with insert is going to look like insert into whatever table this is, and then after that, we put each column that we want inside parentheses, column 1, column 2, column 3, in whatever order we want to talk about them. Once we've listed out the structure of the data that we're adding, then we actually provide all the values. So if I said column 1 will be first, then inside parentheses after values, I put value 1. Where column 2 was, I put value 2. Where column 3 was, I put value 3. Whatever data I want to add gets added in the same order as I listed out the columns above. So notice this is a little bit similar, the first half of this statement, to our create, where we have our table name, and then in parentheses, we have each column that we're talking about. That's one way to think about these inserts, is that you've got your structural data definition here, and then you've got the actual data down below. If we wanted to see a real example of this, I could say that I want to insert into the table vehicle. And the columns that I want to add, I'm going to add a make, and then a model, and then a year, and then some mileage. So I've now listed out just the attributes that I'm interested in including. So after that, I put the word values, and then I put my information in that same order. So I say, well, the make of the car I'm talking about is a Honda. The model of that car will be a Civic. The year of that car will be 2004, and the mileage will be the default value. So notice one important thing here. I haven't actually included all of the data. Not all columns need to be specified in an insert. However, the row that we're adding must satisfy all constraints of the table. If I tried to leave off make or model, those have to be not null, and there is no default value. So it would actually reject an insert that was missing one of those columns. Fortunately for us, when we have a not null unique value like our primary key, we still don't need to put it as long as SQL knows enough to know what that default value should be. So in this case, vehicle ID is a serial, and serials count up from 1. So even though I haven't put vehicle ID here, SQL can infer what that value should be. Even though it's required, I don't have to put it in my insert. If there's a value that's not required, like our mileage, then if you need to specify that default value, you just put default as the value. If it were not null, we wouldn't even need to put it, and it would just assume it's going to be a 0. So now that we've written this insert statement, we can actually try running it, seeing what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead, run my program, pop over to the table, and if I refresh this, we can see there's actually 2 in here. I've run this twice. We have our Honda Civic from 2004 with 0 mileage, that default value. Notice the column I didn't put color has no data in it. This value is still null here. When you don't put things in your insert, if there is no default value that SQL can infer, it just leaves those columns blank. And that's okay as long as it doesn't conflict with any of the constraints you've added to this table. So that is the basics of an insert. The one other neat things about insert statements is that when writing an insert, you can even insert more than one row at a time. If you want to do that, all you need to do is do the same thing that we did last time, where we write first the structure insert, because this is our keyword for adding, into the table with all of our columns, make, model, year. We'll even add color this time, mileage. And then when we're specifying our values, I put all of one row. So I might say a Subaru Crosstrek from, let's say, like 2010, make it blue, make it have, let's say, 500 miles on it. I can put a comma and then add another row right below it. Say, oh, well, I'm also going to add a Ford F-150 from 2018 that's red with 10,000 miles on it. Comma, I can add another row, and I can add as many rows as I want in one insert statement, as long as they're separated by a comma. So I'll say just this one extra row here. We'll give this one, we'll make this red again, make it a default mileage. We'll set it to 0 again. And now I've got this insert that's going to bulk insert multiple rows all at once. This will need to be a multi-line string, which is a good point. If you do want to format your queries like this so they're nice and readable, instead of using the apostrophe quote, in JavaScript, we can use that backtick quote, the one that's shared with tilde, and that says, put all this text in exactly the literal format that we see it here. So now if we go and we run our program again with that additional query, when we go and look at the table is going to get all of those rows all at once added. And if you notice, that first query that we had wrote, it inserted again. So that is one good point. When you are doing these inserts, you have to make sure that they're running exactly when you intend them to. If you put something at the start of your script when you're setting up an application, for instance, that's going to run every single time and produce duplicate records. If you have a unique key in that query, it's probably even going to fail because you can't insert the same unique row twice. But the next statement that I want to look at is how we would change one of these rows. So we've got several rows in here. Maybe I decide I want to make this Ford blue instead of red. If I want to do that, then the type of statement I'm going to use for that is an update statement. So update statements allow us to change rows already in our table. So when you want to write an update, the format of that is update, the name of the table, set some column 1 equals some value 1. Just like with our insert, you can actually do multiple in the same query. If you put a comma, you can then have column 2 equals value 2, and so on, as many of them as you have. And then the one other piece of an update statement is the word where. And this word hopefully looks familiar to you from our last video. A update statement takes a where clause that works exactly the same as the where clauses that we saw with our select. What this does is it says, I want to filter and choose just a couple rows and apply this change to just those rows that meet this condition. So as an example of this, we had said we wanted to set it where we wanted to update the vehicle table, set the color to red, where the make equals Ford. So this is saying, this is the change I want to make. This is the table I'm making it to. And this is the condition I'm checking for to find which rows this change applies to. So if I go and I save and run my program again, oh, we're actually going to see it's still red. So let's change this to something that isn't red. We'll say blue. Save and run it again. And now it's going to go and locate the rows where Ford was red. And notice now it's no longer red. It says blue. But all of our other ones are unaffected. There's still the Volkswagen that's red. There's still the Civic that has no color at all. That is the general form of an update statement. You put update, our keyword for modifying data, the table, the change with set, and then the condition with where. If we neglect to include a condition, this is actually going to update every single row. So as an example of that, if I said I want to execute the query and I just say update vehicle set mileage equal to 1111111. If I don't put a where clause here and I go and I run my program, every single row is going to receive that update. If you look in this mileage column here, suddenly every single car has that same mileage. And this is a really important thing to pay attention to. You almost never, occasionally, if you're resetting your database, if you're cleaning up data, maybe nulling out a column, want to do something like this. But almost always you want that where clause on your update statement. And it's really easy to forget. And if you just run an update with a set, you're globally going to nuke your entire database and lose potentially valuable data. So do keep that in mind when you are working with update. The last type of statement that I want to show you in this video is a delete. And delete statements allow us to remove all matching rows from a table. So delete works very, very similar to update, where I start by saying delete from some table. And then just like with update, this where clause shows up again. And this where clause is still exactly like where clauses from select. You can put where some column equals some value. You can use and, you can use or. I could write here as an example, I want to delete from vehicle. Say I decide I want to delete every single vehicle where the vehicle ID is greater than 6, let's say. Because I noticed there's a lot of duplicate records in here. Maybe I decide, oh, all of those duplicate records, I'm going to try to knock most of them out by limiting myself just up to this last good record because everything else was a copy. I write my query like this. I cancel out and rerun my application. Now, when I reload this table, there's only going to be those first 6 rows, and every other row that had a higher ID number got deleted, and I'm just left with the rows that don't match whatever my where clause specifies. So just like with a update, including that where clause is very, very, very important. If you delete without a where clause, you are going to completely empty a table. If I just put query backtick delete from vehicle and that's it, that's my entire statement, then that looks really simple. It's an innocuous 3 little words, but when I run my program, there's nothing left. The entire table is gone. So delete and update are both very, very powerful statements in that they allow us to change things that are already present. But that means you have to be very cautious when using them, that you do have appropriate conditions set here, especially for delete, because you might lose entire records and not even have any evidence that they existed before. So just like with our last video, this is just barely scratching the surface of what these 3 types of statements can do. There are some things we haven't touched on that I encourage you to go out and review. For delete statements in particular, there is the ability to specify that they should cascade, and using this cascading keyword communicates that if you would cause a problem with a dangling foreign key, something that should be referenced somewhere else, and you're leaving this reference behind, you can say, okay, well, any records attached to this thing, those get deleted as well. That's really valuable, really fun, also really dangerous. Same thing with update. You can create subqueries where you can even embed a select into your update inside the where clause, which lets you even more precisely target things, referencing data from other tables. You can say update this table, set a column equal to some value that you're drawing from somewhere else. But this gives you enough, again, to do a lot of the most common tasks that you're going to see in a web development setting when you're designing RESTful APIs. So in this video, we looked at inserts, both single records and bulk inserts, and talked a little bit about default values in them. We looked at updates and how we can set columns or set multiple columns based on a condition. And we looked at delete to remove things from our tables. From here, we're going to start talking about ways that we can move away from writing SQL ourselves, talk about object relational models that try to write some of this basic SQL for us. So look forward to that, and I will catch you all in the next one.